But at first, all right, so I'll start. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for the speakers and everyone who were able to get past the link problem and get in. And I will start by a few words about the CRS, the Young Scientist Committee, and a bit about CV from our side, and then we'll hear our speakers. Then we'll get questions from you, from the audience, and we'll go over some of the CVs that were sent to us. So please use the chat to send us questions. Jamie will sew them through and put them on slides for our speakers to see. Right, so use the chat. You can use it from now, and I'll get to my presentation. Let's see, share. There you go. So we have together with us today Professor Ben Boyd from Monash University, Dr. Manuel Sanchez-Felix from Novartis, and Professor Ratnesh from ICT in Mumbai, India. To moderate with me, I have Jamie Lam from Monash, and let's get started. So the YSC, the Young Scientists Committee, is part of Young Scientists from the Control Release Society. And we create events and workshops for our community. It can be either a professional workshop for professional development or scientific workshops. You can see it on the side, the upcoming workshops that we plan to do in the upcoming months. And we encourage you to join as a member at the CRS. And for that, we did a special promotion, right, for current CRS members who registered for our CV event, and new members that will register in the coming week will they'll be able to send us a CV for review by a senior CRS member. So this is really for you. Thank you, Ben, for the suggestion, and it's really for you guys to get acquainted with our community, see how much we care about our members, and you're all free to, not all the members, whoever will join us and become a member is able to send a CV, and we will send an email with further details later on next week. So we really thought of how to approach the whole CV session, and we want to say just a few things before we give our speakers the microphone. So in a CV, you want to have eventually a face-to-face interview, because this is where you really can show your what you are, and it's really the first chance to make a good impression. And unfortunately, most people don't spend much time, and they send the same CV to everyone, and they don't spend much time on their CV for the specific application that they are sending to. Just a quick facts that I got from the Undercover Recruiter website. You see, after a job is posted, only the first application is received after 200 seconds. Okay, this is really fast. You are competing with a lot of people. The first screening time takes about 5 to 7 seconds. Think about all the CVs that these recruiters get. It's really, they need to go over them really fast. So you really need to catch the eye. If you have an unprofessional email address, so there's a 76% that your CV will be ignored. So please use and open, if you don't have already, a professional email address. Recruiters state that only 70% of them will read your cover letter, yet it is important to invest time in the cover letter for the people who will read it. So do not take this into account when you write it. And I'm sure you're all very beautiful people, but please do not put your picture in a CV. As you see, 88% of job rejections is if you have the photo in your CV. So just remove it. You don't need to give excuses for the recruiter not to hire you. So, work on your Facebook profile. You can just block everything for only your friends to see it, as recruiters and employers will look at your profile and see what you post there. So the best way is just to close it, to block it. And just last slide for me in this part. We asked our in our social media tips for what is a good CV from people from the academia and the industry. We got some really interesting tips. So the first one is from Professor Justin Haynes from Johns Hopkins Medicine. He says that he does a track record of accomplishments, innovation, quality, and some tip that I really liked is that he likes to have links to the publications, to the PDF in the CV itself. It's really easy for him to get to the CV without searching for it. So it's a really good idea to put it. Dr. Laura Mason from Upperton Pharma Solution. She likes a clear and concise layout and says that a CV should be facts with a cover letter to sell yourself. So there you go. You can and should invest time in the cover letter. Professor Christine Allen from University of Toronto, she's saying that beyond training and publication, she looks for evidence of initiative and leadership. It's something that sets you apart from the other candidates. I really believe in what she's saying, and as I believe that everyone should think what sets them apart, what their CV is. No, we have a crash. Someone crashed our session. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing and I will get just to the speakers themselves. Sorry for that. I know why people are having, let's see, maybe I just need to remove people. Okay, so we'll just skip that. This was my last slide in any case. Okay, so continuing from that, I want to introduce our speakers. All right, so we have Professor Ben Boyd. Professor Ben Boyd is a colloid and physical chemist with a PhD from the University of Melbourne. After industry experience in the explosives and pharmaceutical industries, he commenced an academic position at Monash University of Pharmaceutical Sciences. His research group focuses on colloidal and structural aspects of lipid self-assembly and pharmaceutical systems, focused on controlling materials at the colloidal scale for delivery in pharma and other fields. His group has published over 250 research papers, receiving over 10,000 citations. So thank you, Ben, for joining us. Our next speaker is Dr. Manuel Sanchez-Felix. He is a senior fellow with the Chemical and Pharmaceutical Profiling Group at Novartis, responsible for the evaluation and implementation of external novel delivery technologies. He is a scientific leader with over 20 years of experience in drug discovery and development, where he co-invented and contributed to the successful development and launch of various pharmaceutical products. So thank you, Manuel. Last but not least, Dr. Ratnesh. He's an assistant professor at the Department of Chemical Engineering in the Institute of Chemical Technology in Mumbai, where he's heading a biologics characterization lab. He has more than 80 publications, and he's also advising and assisting various biopharma startups for innovation solutions in the biopharma industry. He's also the founder of science communication startup, What's Science. So thank you all for joining us and giving us opportunity to learn from you. So let's start with what you want to say to our audience, Ben.
Sure, thanks, Leo. I guess firstly, thank you to yourself and Jamie for organising this session. I think it's a great idea, and this medium of, it's always good to meet in person, but this medium suits this type of activity really well. So shame about our uninvited visitor, but hopefully I don't have any slides, so hopefully they will grow impatient and leave if they're still there. So so I'm taking, my first, or the area that I intend to focus on. So we've decided between the speakers, we're going to have 3 different types of talks or types of discussions. So my first one is going to be 3 points. And so the first point is about the fact that your CV is not about you. So the smart people don't make their CV about themselves. The smart people make their CV about the person who's going to need to read it and decide whether that CV is going to help them or it's not going to help them. So if you start taking that attitude into writing your CV, you'll find that it will be quite different. It'll be very focused. It'll be very to the point. And so really what that comes down to is understanding or thinking about and then trying to gather information on what the motivation of the person is who is doing the hiring. And it might be through a recruitment company, which makes it a little more difficult. But if there's a job advertised at a university and it's linked to a certain group, or if there's a specific job function advertised in industry, there's a motivation behind that. So the person who's doing the hiring really wants you to make their job easier, usually. Your function will be to make their job easier. So when you think hard about that and you think about, well, what is it that I can do and what is it that I can demonstrate that will make them make the decision that I would make their job easier, you're one big step further towards getting to interview, and your CV is the opportunity to show them that in the sea of all the other CVs that they'll get. So, even in a research-focused position, it may be that there may be 3 people who apply, all with outstanding publication records, and they've got some grants and they've done outstanding research things. But that professor who's making that hire, they may not even put it in the job advertisement, but they may want someone to be able to do some of their teaching, or at least be able to do that if the time came. And so having an element of things that you think are motivating the person who's doing the hiring can often work substantially in your favour. And the person doing the hiring may not have even thought about it until you remind them. And don't, sometimes there's not an opportunity to do this, and you need to be very careful about doing this, but even asking whether there are other aspects to the job that are not necessarily in plain sight in the advertisement might help you. And so you may get a response to an email that helps you better tailor your CV in that respect. I'm not saying that every time you apply for a job that you should try to make separate contact, but in certain circumstances when it's a specific person, and particularly if it's specifically something in your area that you're super qualified at and it's your dream job, then it probably wouldn't hurt. It would show initiative, and that can help. So point 2 is, how am I going for time, Leo? Point 2 is stratification. So you can get a lot of information into a CV, and I think that the CVs that have been circulated show the best and worst of that. So you can put a lot of information in a CV, but the way that you structure the CV shouldn't be chronological. It shouldn't be in order of topic. It should be by stratifying what is the information, the key information the person who is making the decision needs to know about me in the first, 20 seconds or something of looking at my CV.
5
So
seconds.
can they tick all the boxes in the first 5 seconds? because that's the only way you're going to get somewhere near the top of the pile. And remembering it's all about a ranking. It's like research grants. You're one position in the ranking from, well, this sounds a bit harsh, but you're one position in the banking from, or in the rankings from success to failure. So, so keep that in mind, that, you know, stratifying your information and having it presented in a way that in 5 seconds, it's really obvious that you're the person that, or one of the people they should be talking to, is really important. And so I've seen some really good formatting for that, and we can talk about that later if you like. And then point 3, because we're on a time frame here, my third point is atmosphere. So CVs can be boring. They can be more boring than a bloody lecture on GMP, right? But they don't have to be. So, and the analogy I used when we had a quick discussion yesterday about the session was also thinking about it like a review. So, you know, the worst reviews are the ones that say that Group A, Group B and Group C did X, Y and Z. That doesn't, you know, that, you can read the papers anyway. That's not necessarily helpful to the person reading the review, and it's certainly not inspiring. Whereas when you have a, you know, when you read a review that has attitude and has a, you know, a point to it, or it has, you know, it incites some sort of feeling about something, that then captures your imagination, and you want to keep reading it. You want to know what's coming next, like a good novel. And so your CV can be to a degree like that. So don't be afraid to think about things like your font. So certain fonts inspire certain feelings, right? So, you know, really out there fonts, you know, you don't want to go there if you're going with a really serious position, but having a little bit of character in the font that you use doesn't necessarily hurt. I certainly wouldn't go for Comic Sans in your CV if I was you. Colour. So, you know, red colour will tend to indicate a go-getter, someone who's, you know, really going to go for it. But that's not necessarily what every position's calling for. It might be calling, if you're going for a job in quality control, then the last thing you want to look like is a really super aggressive cowboy type, right? So you need to, so you can use colour to inspire that sort of feeling about your CV. And then there's language. So think carefully about the words that you use as well. Think about them in an ethnicity context. You could show that you could fit into a foreign company by using terminology that they might use rather than the terminology of your home country. And so I'm probably getting close to my 5 minutes. So I just wanted to get across those 3 things. So 3 things were putting yourself in the position of the person hiring, because your CV is not about you, it's about them. Stratification of the information and the atmosphere of your CV.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. I want to address all the participants. Use the chat to write down questions, all right? If you didn't hear me before, you joined afterwards, use the chat, write your questions, and Jamie will put it on slides, and we'll ask the speakers in around about 10 minutes. Okay, so use the chat, and you use the opportunity you have to ask our speakers. All right, Manuel. Yeah.
Well, Lior and Jamie and Anna, thank you so much for organizing this. I know it's now 12 o'clock in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So this, I think, shows you the importance we put as CRS members on helping the community, and particularly younger folks, and what you're seeing from the other members as well. And I think it's reflected. So I'm gonna sort of take a step before what Ben described. I think Ben's advice is really, really important and is really the essence of the key message. One of the slides you weren't able to show, Lior, was with regards to the feedback to the questionnaire, which I thought was really important. And we deliberately asked that. And essentially, there was a very, very important question that we asked you, which is, do you want to go into industry? Do you want to go into academia, or do you not know? And this really, I think, leads up to what Ben is alluding to. I think 1/3 of you were very honest and said you didn't know. I want to emphasize to you that there's not a problem. You shouldn't view yourself as having a problem if you don't know what you want to do, what you don't want to do. if you write a CV, just be aware that it will become very apparent if you do not know what you don't want to do. I would highly recommend a really excellent Google talk called Design Your Life, which is based upon a Stanford course and a book, which basically was designed for people like yourselves, very ambitious, very capable, very creative individuals who are at Stanford doing PhDs and postdocs. And at the end of it, they didn't know what they wanted to do. And the reason I bring this up is what they recommend is to try things while you're doing your studies, because you do have the opportunity to do internships. So it may be something that's going through your mind, but I would encourage you to, while you're doing your PhDs, to actually ask questions, visit labs, work with people. It's not a bad thing to go somewhere and actually find out you really don't like it. What it does do is it also helps you understand what you do like and what you don't like and structure that CV. And maybe that's something after the meeting, Leo, I can sort of send you a link to the actual book and also a video which is from Google, and which will help the members. So, and this I think emphasizes what Ben was alluding to, which is at the end of the day, you're going to be joining either academia or industry, and it's really a first step. There's no wrong step, it's the first step. And the journey can take many different paths. But the key bit is to have at least an indication where you want to go to and what you're trying to accomplish in your career. But more importantly, understand what it is that the person's asking of you and to design your CV. My second point is alluding to what Ben has highlighted, which is you've got to make your CV interesting. I'm seeing some really, really nice CVs these days that I would definitely copy from. And one of the things that I'm impressed with those CVs is that they have almost like a life statement about their personality, telling you something about them as an individual. What is the motivation behind them, and what is it that they're looking for? It may sound odd to put that in there, but when I read a CV, I'm normally looking for a specific type of individual. I'm in the research environment. I have worked in the quality control environment. I have worked in manufacturing. I know that there's very different cultures, very different personalities. There's also, bear in mind that every single company and every different department has a different culture and a different perspective. It is useful to convey that in when you're messaging your CV. So I've seen CVs actually have a life philosophy statement, which gives someone a little bit of a short sentence about them as an individual, what they're about. It provides you with a differentiation. I've also seen statements where they highlight what they've been most proud about, what has really impacted their lives, that has influenced them. And it's sort of what that does is it starts providing a little bit of the personality of the individual in a CV, which is very difficult to actually do. The other part that I'm going to stress is it's very important to actually provide a kind of overview of your experience and your perspective so that it can be drawn out. Putting a list of publications, putting a list of different labs really doesn't tell the individual what you've accomplished in reality and what you actually did. What you've got to do is convey that. And I think this is what I think Ben is alluding to. As we go through some of the examples, what we can do is draw upon the strengths and weaknesses of some of the CVs. I think that's more or less from me for the time being. Leo, we may want to move on now.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. These were really important points. There you go, Ratnesh.
Hi. So I think Ben and Manuel both have, given a quite a good overview about CV. So I'll be speaking more of a, factual thing, and I'll begin my statement while saying that CVs, probably the first thing, when you go for recruitment or when you go for a hiring, that's the first thing which talks about you. So there's a very famous management jargon which says if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and that's where your CV speaks. So CV is all about different kind of your bibliometrics which you have generated over the period of time. So there are 5 points which I wish to mention here. The first thing is customization. You really need a customization when you are applying, to whom you are applying. There is no ideal CV, which runs around for everything you are looking for. So if you're looking for industry, there is a different kind of a CV. If you're looking for a specific kind of industry, if it is a startup industry, you need a different CV. If it is an established industry, you need a different CV. If you are applying for academia, you again need a different CV. So there is no fix or ideal CV in any of these cases. So you need to customize it. Again, it's also when are you applying. If you are a fresh student, definitely you have credentials like your publications which are going to speak about you. If you are a mature student having significant amount of experience, specifically postdoc, then in addition to your publication, you also going to have leadership skills. So as Christian Allen says, that in addition to publications, I'm also looking for leadership skills or team management. So for me, this also becomes much more important, that what kind of skill set do you have in addition to the publication, which will help me to run a team or a group which we are managing here. The third thing is, I'm not sure how many people focus on that part, but to the employers with in my experience I have interacted with, or the people whom I employ, I give a very high emphasis on non-academic activities. So in addition to academia, what do you do? What are your choices? What is your life beyond your academia? And that's very important, because that will make you a excellent team player, or something which when right now we are talking about that there is good amount of stress in each of the job which you handle, and the stress management typically comes from what do you do apart from your academic activities. So in a very in a summarizedly in your CV, you should mention what do you do. So there is a lot of question people ask, that whether we should point anything about our non-academic activities. My suggestion is we should, not to in a more generic sense, but in a sense that how that basically help you to evolve a good human being, and how it evolves you to be a good team player within any of this team. And that's where the non-academic activities comes into the picture. So when you make a CV, it's also very important that each of the job responsibility and your contribution to the job responsibility. So you have worked as a PhD student, or you have worked as a postdoc fellow, but what did you do? In addition to your publication, which will anyway come out. It's 10 o'clock. From that particular point, it is important that you focus on in your exact terms, your contributions, whether you have contributed academically, or you have run, you're using as a postdoc a team, 2 to 3 students, and how did you manage, and what kind of skill set have you generated during that particular period of time. Again, do not, whenever you are applying or when you are making CV, do not to be too elaborated in each and every manner. The shorter the CV and more talkative it is, more interactive it is, the best chances to get understand it, and you are supposed to get much better response if it is more interactive in nature. Last but not the least, it's a puzzle. Your CV is a puzzle. So you are basically they are looking, the employer, recruiter is looking that how you are going to benefit them. And your perception is basically to judge an employer, recruiter, what kind of problems they are looking at it, what kind of deficiency they have. So if those deficiencies are very clear, then your CV is going to make a right fit into their requirement. So if your perception is right, you are going to make a nice CV. That's all from my side. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ratnesh. Thank you all for your beautiful insights. I think it was really, really interesting. So now we move to questions from the audience. Jamie will load them up for us. Yeah, Jamie, can you do it like full screen? Yep. Okay, so first question. While we tailor the CV, do we need to mention all the skills or just the skills that are particular to that position? Is having extra skills in the CV an advantage or a disadvantage, in your opinion? Someone wants to answer?
I'd be happy to take a first stab at this. I think it's useful to highlight all the skills you had, but succinctly. Yeah. Not in tremendous detail. I've seen some very nice, elegant CVs where they've summarized in bullet points the key skills.
So you think that bullet points is the right way to go with skills?
It's potentially one of, but I've seen some very elegant ways of doing that. Yeah, and assembling it, and definitely the format.
And maybe highlight or put in bold what's necessary for the specific job.
That's an excellent suggestion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also think about the stratification option, and so you can separate out the core skills for the job, make sure they're right front and center, but then have another section later that's additional relevant skills or something.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll now move to the next question. All right, is it important how many years after PhD can we apply for a postdoc? All right, so
yeah.
But for the academia people,
minus a third.
What do you mean?
Well, so getting a postdoc position, unless you're going to do it on a voluntary basis, requires somebody to have funding to pay you. And so that is not something that is generally known well in advance of actually knowing that you have the position. So you need to think about the typical grant cycles for the type or the country that you're looking to go into. So if there's so in Australia, for example, there's no point applying for a position in May or June because no grants are awarded around May or June unless you're doing COVID research. All the grants are awarded in October. So the best time to apply is October, November, to have a chance of someone seeing your CV that might have access to funding. And they would usually then start in January, February the next year for us in our at the end of our summer. So, but thinking even further about that, what you want to do is, not rely on your CV going in a day after the person who, thought the same thing but happened to put it in a day earlier. So 3 months before you are going to finish, I would recommend thinking about who you want to be working with, what the grant cycle is for their particular country, and trying to time your application or your CV into their inbox around those constraints.
Yeah, if I may read this question, correctly. So the question is, how many years after PhD can we apply for the postdoc? Sooner is better, either as soon as possible. So postdoc is not, it's the initial journey, which you need to adopt. There's no point, having a postdoc after you go into a routine employment or a job. So I think, within a year or something, you should take that decision.
Right, thank you. We can move to the next question. Are CVs the most crucial point in impressing, or would you say interviews are better? In my opinion, I think interviews, but
Yeah. So
you won't get to interview if you don't impress with your CV. You won't get to interview.
yeah, that's the whole point of a CV, in my opinion, as well. Yeah.
Next.
Right. What should the mail containing the CV should look like? And this is a really good question. We got it also yesterday, and people also yesterday talked about whether the cover letter should be in a separate file, or should it be in the main body of the email?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Do you want to go first, Ratnesh? Or Manuel?
Yes.
I guess in the US, if it's an industry, there's an automated process, and the two normally have to be separated as distinct entities, because they have a skimming tool that will pull the information out of the CV. So from an industry perspective, there's a necessity to have the two separated. Am I misinterpreting the question?
So I think the mail body should be very precise. What I'm trying to understand from this question is, it has to be very, very precise. A very, very long email is going to discourage even the CV looking process. A precise and focused, as I told when I was discussing, if you have a perception that for which job you are applying, if you are directly going to the point that how you as an employee or as a student or a postdoc is going to benefit that particular industry, academic or research group, that should be the point of focus in your mail component. So I would say that avoid any kind of further explanation about anything which is not needed in a mail body. So mail body should only talk about what are you looking for.
All right.
Yeah, Ben.
I just received one if you'd like me to screen share. It's okay. But this one is way too long, and I would not have the time to read it, and I can immediately see that. You need to, in the first sentence, say why you would, at least from an academic perspective, why you are well matched to that research group's area of research.
That's a very good point.
Then it's clear that you haven't read. If your experience is not directly in line, then it's unlikely that I'm going to read further unless you're lucky enough that I have some position from left field that that happens to just match your non-relevant area of expertise.
Yeah. Yesterday they also asked about the dear sir or dear madam at the beginning. Like if it's not specifically addressing a person, it really looks like a copy paste and it doesn't look good. I don't know if from an industry point, it's really hard to point it to a specific person, but maybe to point it out to a specific division or team in the company. Maybe it's better than just writing dear sir, dear madam. That's
if you know where it's going to, yes, but majority of the time you don't know who the hiring manager is, and it's difficult to ascertain that information. But if you do, it really does help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right. So next question. If you have skills and unfortunately low publications, how can we shine this on the CV? And this is a really, really good question. So what do you say? Ben, do you have any answer for that? Let's say postdoc position.
Just because you don't necessarily have strong publication record doesn't mean that you are not able to fulfill the role of making that person's life easier. So, you need to think that metrics are often important, but not always. And, you want to attract the attention. You want the person to get to the point of having to worry about the metrics, thinking that you're the right person for the job. So if you think about it that way around, that's for many academics, that's not going to help, but at least it puts you in there with a chance. So highlighting all of the most relevant skills and the things that you would bring that will help that person to fulfill what their motivation is your best way. And you have to think about it. It takes effort.
Thank you. Ratnesh?
So, I mean, mostly I go along with what Ben has said, but when you have, less amount of publication, to be very honest, the CV is going to shine. Definitely it can shine, but much better fits into the industrial requirement, because then you have a right skill set probably, and industry is not something which you are primarily looking for your publication, whether they are looking for the skill set. So I would, say that, your preference should go to industry in case you are looking for, skill set based CV. That's what my take is.
All right. Manuel, in the industry, how strong do you look at the publications part?
I think here the emphasis is on experience and the skill sets that you have and what you've contributed. So the emphasis is as has been alluded to, is highlighting what experiences that you've had that are relevant for that position. And what I also look for is the ability of the person to learn and adapt. That's another skill that I tend to look for, because it shows that they can sort of take on new things and build on what they've got as a fundamental. So it's around, if this is why I emphasized trying to accomplish some internships in specific positions really does help. It gives you that information and data, it gives you something to put down your CV that's relevant, that might be relevant for a position, and shows that you have done it and that you can benefit that group and can grow into that position, and that you also know what that entails and what you're walking into.
Great, thank you. Valid points. Right. Next question. Do you consider courses taken online, especially during the lockdown? Many students are taking online courses. Is it beneficial if it adds skills like computer programming for a biologist? And this is really, really relevant question nowadays. What do you think of all the online courses? Is it something that you take as a skill of a person, or is it just like practical thing that he did in his work that you consider as experience?
Maybe if I started, I think yes, but typically what I look for is how it's been applied.
All right.
It's not just a matter of I've done a course, but I've done a course and I've used it to achieve something that I'm interested in, or as being of value, a problem that I've tried to solve. So I think the answer is yes, and unavoidable in these circumstances. But it'd be interesting to hear what the others say.
Yeah, I agree completely that just having done a course in isolation, especially if it's a little bit peripheral to the job description, you want to have a statement in there about what the specific application is that you've learned to apply it to, or it might be, let's say you learned how to do some special simulation package in microfluidics. You could put a simulation on a web page and direct people to that. So, you've used the time to pick up skills in understanding droplet coalescence or something. But yeah, so make sure there's an edge to it. Don't just put it in there just for an extra line.
Ratnesh, any?
I think I'll go with Manuel. So I don't have any additional comment. It's
All
how
right.
you. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So I think we're done with the questions part, and now we'll go over to CVs to show CVs that were sent to us, and we would like to hear your comments on. All right, we'll start with CV1, Jamie, if you can. Wait, Jamie will put it up for us.
Yeah.
There you go. We ask for our registrants to send us CVs so our speakers can comment on. So, what do you think of the first CV?
Shall I take a stab? Well, firstly, I think all three CVs are really highly talented individuals. That's the first thing that you're going to see. So there's they're very, very good. The question is whether they've conveyed the message, and the other question is whether in the CV they have conveyed what it is that the person is looking for. When I look at this particular CV, the thing that does strike me is it's very long. The really positive parts is that the person conveys a lot of relevant experience that they've had and contributions that they've made in different roles, and that they've highlighted key aspects. If I was to say and they've also conveyed to some extent that they're looking for a specific type of position in their opening statement by implication rather than by actually stating. So if I was to sort of say what could be amended, is it's difficult to glean what it is they're actually specifically looking for in the career progression. They clearly have progressed and they clearly have taken on more responsibility. And what is not clear to me is anything about them as a person and what motivates them. They do have skills. They've highlighted in bullet points, you know, their various achievements. It's not a bad CV. It's a good one, but there could be things that could really make this stand out even more.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more comments from our other speakers, Ben, Ratnesh?
It's fairly obvious to say that if there's typographical areas in your CV, that reflects in a certain way, and also if there's different fonts in your CV, it's not when it's not obvious why you've used a different font. I think that intuitively is seen kind of as a negative. It's like you haven't thought too long and hard about your effort at putting the CV together. So be really painstaking at making sure that there's none of those silly things in there. This one does have some. I agree with Manuel, but it's a good CV and it's quite clear where the skills lie. It probably could be a bit better stratified. Move some of the information that's less important towards the back and bring more important information up to the front.
So So I think one thing which I agree with Ben is little more focus on specifically certain spellings and typos, which you need to. The one good thing which I like about the CV is talking about what the person has did in different responsibilities. How can you reduce, because it's a long CV? So you should again focus on what are you looking for. If objective is clear, if you're sending this to an industry, then they're more interested in your what you actually did in recent experience. So then you probably could eliminate what you did back in 2004, 2006, or 2006. You should focus on your recent last 3 years of experience. And you can further reduce certain things like software skills and other stuff which you are needed, because when you grow from stage 1, your beginning research experience, to advanced research experience, certain things can be eliminated. So that is something. And of course your target, because recruiter is not able to navigate what are you looking for, and that is very, very important here. So that's my comment on the CV.
Thank you. Very good points on the CV. We can move to the second one. Yeah. All right. Who wants to go first? Ben,
So,
any comments?
Yeah. So the second one, to me, is it's a bit more appealing to the eye, but it still doesn't help the recruiter very quickly determine whether you're the right person for the position. And we don't know what job advertisement these have been potentially tailored towards, but even you're having some sort of an impact or statement or a focus statement at the start is really, really important.
How important is a statement at the beginning compared to the length of the CV? Let's say if I add a statement here, it will be maybe 3 pages. So is it more important the initial statement than the length, in your opinion?
Well, I think that as Manuel has said, that getting who you are into the first part of your CV is very important, because when people when you read a research paper, subconsciously you kind of picture the people that have written it, I think, or I do anyway, I don't know about anybody else. And so you have a preconception of what people are like, and I think you can make the person feel more comfortable reading the document if they have a feel for the person who's behind it. It also helps from a general, because we're all human perspective as well. But yeah, so I really think that a very short, no more than, if you can get it into 2 lines across the page, and no more. I think that, so that's one of the strengths of the first one, was it had those some sort of emphasis bullet points at the start, but there was too much text around it to bother to read every word. So no more than two lines, I would say.
All right. We have 1 more minute on this CV. Really quick points from you guys.
If you could go back. I actually, here's the challenge I face with this CV. I think the structure is good. It doesn't give you enough. When you actually read it, what really comes across to me about this individual, but it's all hidden, and you have to have some context and really read it. What you hear, look at this, and you see someone who's actually very adventurous, is prepared to do all sorts of stuff, is a really good communicator, really likes working with other people. Yeah, really, it's really obvious in all their activities, but it doesn't come across at the beginning. Someone who is reading 100 to 200 CVs will probably skip over that and miss that, or has the high probability of missing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't need to know about your secondary education, that's for sure. Not on the first page at the front.
Yeah.
True. So, I mean, my only comment would be that, Sherlock Holmes, famously said it's important to, remove essential from accidental. So, that's essential is, nowhere it is coming in. And that's ultimately, does allow any recruiter to navigate through the CV. So all the essential part, as Ben is saying, secondary education, or, the multiple things. So just make it short and to be focused where they apply.
Right. Thank you. Last CV. Yes. All right. Ratnesh, you want to start?
Yeah. So thank you. I think this particular CV has, again, it's as a shorter one, same question, same comments like where are you applying? So though it reflects that neurology is one of the experience, but again, same question, that a target which you are looking for. I think the conference information specifically which has been put up here is not needed, because what is typically important is how your publication rate is in case it's a CV for PhD. In case you are looking for a industrial requirement, the academic employment has very well informed about what kind of experience you already have. So again, I think a motivational point, a statement of purpose, a short SOP would be good enough.
Okay, thank you. Manuel, any comments?
I look at this as a lot of bullet points. There's nothing here about the individual.
So what would you look for here? When you say about the individual, what do you think should be?
I don't know what they want and what they're going to offer me.
Okay.
When I look at this, I think I do want to stress this, all the free CVs you've shown of tremendous individuals, I just don't think that, I think there's an opportunity to convey a stronger message about what they want. And, Rajesh said it really well. If you're going into academia, you need one set of CVs. If you're going into industry, you need a very different.
That's right. That's right. All right, Ben?
So, this it doesn't look like a CRS person. This is a friend of yours, Leo, or something.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and again, so the bullet points are great at the front end, but it just needed it just needs a bit of text to bring across the ambition and who the person is. So the rest of the information, if you sell it in that first couple of sentences, then they'll go to the rest of the information to make sure that it ticks the boxes. But getting that important sort of context in the sense of who you are and why you're the right person, but very super concisely is really important.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure all three individuals are very happy with your comments, and also I believe the other attendees have learned a lot. I would like to conclude our session. The last slide. Okay, so I really want to thank, and I can't emphasize it enough, how we appreciate your contribution to the young scientists. So really, thanks a lot. Please, for everyone, you are free to follow us on social media, and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. We have a lot more coming up. Next week we have Young Scientist Committee Back to Basics about statistics, and you can follow us on social media and get all the information there about how to register and so on. We have the annual meeting of the CRS to be on June 29th to the 30th. It will be a virtual meeting, and you are welcome to register and join us for some great science. Lastly, I would like to thank our sponsor, CureVac. CureVac is sponsoring the Young Scientist events, the networking and giving us networking and learning opportunities for all the young scientists. So thanks a lot for your contribution. I think we are done here. About the recording of this session and the previous session, we'll send it as soon as we get it online to all the people who registered. Thank you for being here. I hope we made it beneficial for you in these 2 sessions, and good luck with everything you want to achieve. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.